Hello again. We'll be starting in just another minute. Thanks.
Hi and welcome. Thank you for joining Acadia Center for this webinar. I'll give you a little introduction overview of the webinar. My name is Amy Boyd. I'm a senior attorney in our Massachusetts office, and I'm joined by Jeremy McDermott, senior advisor and part of the team that developed the action guide, and Krisha Wasney, who's our communications director, and will be helping out with logistics. So during the presentation, if you have questions, type your questions into the Q&A box that's down at the bottom of your screen. We'll tackle questions about the action guide itself during the webinar. And if there are more targeted policy questions, we can tackle some of those offline. So a little background. Acadia Center is really excited to share its latest piece of work, the Community EnergyVision Action Guide. The Action Guide grew out of the series of work that Acadia Center has been producing, beginning with EnergyVision, to showcase how the Northeast can shift to a clean, consumer-friendly energy system. Change pages. And we see that vision here. This is rooftop solar, wind-producing renewable energy, electric vehicles charging and zipping around town, energy storage located in efficient homes and businesses, all drawing on market-ready technologies to produce deep emissions reductions and maximize economic, environmental, and public health benefits. This lovely picture comes from Acadia Center's Community Energy Vision report, which focused on the changes needed to advance strong, sustainable community energy systems. That report builds on another publication of Acadia Center, Utility Vision, which provided additional detail for electricity sector reforms and opportunities needed at the utility level. All told, the work sets out the pathway for ambitious, achievable advances in 4 key areas: energy efficiency, renewable power, electrification of buildings and transportation, and grid modernization that will allow communities to take control of their energy systems and reform the way the energy is planned and managed. So today we'll take about 30 minutes to walk through Acadia Center's latest report, the Community Energy Vision Action Guide. Jeremy's going to walk us through the action guide, including its context, components, and potential uses for state and local action here in Massachusetts. Then we'll transition into a discussion of specific actions communities here in Massachusetts can take to advance clean energy. As part of Acadia Center's Massachusetts team, I have some ideas about that, but what we're really interested in is your experiences, insights, and questions. If you want to share those during the presentation, again, you can type them into the Q&A box and we'll tackle them and other comments towards the end. Without further ado, let's get to it. Jeremy?
Thank you, Amy, and thank you to everyone for joining the call. As Amy talked about, we're excited about this this publication and looking forward to taking it to the next level. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about the context for it and why Acadia Center had decided to put together the Community Energy Vision Action Guide. As we were developing the Energy Vision series, it became increasingly clear that a lot of clean energy opportunities happen at the community level. There's a huge opportunity for communities to benefit from new technologies, offering an unprecedented level of access to both affordable, resilient, and local energy. And in addition, communities have a unique position and a capacity to change behavior and establish new energy norms. However, communities are also dependent upon what state rules allow them to do, and sometimes those rules vary widely across the northeastern states as to what communities can and cannot do. Here at Acadia Center, we want to encourage communities to have the ability to pursue their clean energy futures. And so we prepared the Community Energy Vision Action Guide, the action guide to explore these changes that are needed to allow communities to fully benefit and participate in a sustainable low-emission energy system, and to really achieve this modern energy vision that we've laid out in some of our other publications. Those changes are needed to align community opportunities with the state rules and laws that are out there, and to sort of modernize those outdated rules that currently act as barriers to community action. Updating those rules and achieving these changes will also require a high degree of community support. So if we look at Acadia Center's goals for this project, the first was to raise the awareness both about what communities can do and what they can't under current state rules and regulations, what they can't do. And it's designed to communicate the significant level of research that Acadia Center did in putting this product together at the state level across 7 northeastern states. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, we want to identify those barriers to community energy so that the action guide will help inspire advocacy for the types of changes needed to expand community energy opportunities. So in order to organize the document, we put the various potential policy actions or projects into 4 categories. One is how buildings use energy. Municipalities and communities have a lot of the built environment, and there's a lot of energy that goes into heating and electrifying and lighting and making these buildings go. Second, how energy is generated, delivered, and purchased at the local level. Third, how zoning and siting rules shape the way clean energy developments get done at the community level. And fourth, how residents, businesses, and municipalities finance these energy opportunities. The action guide includes a comprehensive list, or what we strove to be comprehensive, of 37 clean energy actions where communities could have a high degree of control. So the guide explores these 37 actions with 3 interlinking sections. The first section is a broad overview of the types of actions that a community might pursue. The second one is a matrix that compares the availability of each of the 37 actions across the northeastern states. And finally, there's a section that is a deep dive into each individual state, looking at the specific rules and regulations that govern the actions and either allow or prohibit communities from moving forward. When used together, these sections can help the reader determine whether a given action is possible, whether it's limited or prohibited under the current state rules. And it also offers a broader regional context about how other states compare to your own. When the state rules are aligned with the community's clean energy aspirations, communities will have the full freedom to act and will have the complete set of tools they need to embrace a clean energy future. So how does it work? We have tried to make it user-friendly by employing a color coding system that gives users a clear sense of the status of each energy action and potential next steps for a community interested in a particular action. Users can begin by choosing an action and then asking a series of questions. Is the action covered under state policy? Has it been done before? Is it replicable? Is there a clear precedent in your state? The answers to each question help determine where each action stands and where a community or a community advocate needs to go to pursue that action. So the color code is designed to make it easy to understand whether there's a red, green, or yellow light. The green light indicates that there are no structural barriers to action. And so Acadia Center has identified actions as green when there is a clear legislative authorization at the state level and or there's a clear precedent for communities taking action. These are the steps that every community in a given state could take. However, it's important to note that it doesn't mean that every community in the state has taken that action. Green actions are of a sort of to-do list or things that are open to communities to pursue without intervening at the state level. Yellow indicates a lack of clarity in state rules and regulations. We identified actions as yellow when there were limitations or considerations that could hinder a community from pursuing a particular action, or if there is no clear precedent in another municipality in that state. Yellow actions may be possible, but communities need to learn more, and they may need to do work at the state level to make changes. A red action is a full stop. Acadia Center identified actions as red when they were clearly prohibited by state rules or laws. These steps are not currently possible for communities, but they are ripe for reform, and this is an invitation for state level advocacy to help create that alignment between state rules and a community's aspirations. So if we look at the middle part of the document, the regional matrix, which shows a color coding for each action in each state, each of the 7 states, New England and New York. This may be one of the most interesting parts to many folks of the report. Community energy advocates may be interested initially in the status of each action in their own state, but this element of the document, gives a regional context for these types of actions. It allows audiences to compare which actions are possible, which are limited, and which are prohibited across each region, and to see how each state stacks up on each community energy opportunity. You'll see there are a couple things that stand out. No state jumps out as entirely permissive or entirely restrictive. There's no column of red or no column of green. The balance of green and red in each column may be surprising. Some states that are known as leading states don't necessarily have a column of greens. This may suggest that there are latent opportunities in these states to pursue actions that are already at their disposal. Also, a fewer than a third of the actions that Acadia Center researched and documented have the same status in all 7 states, and no single action was prohibited across the board. There's no row of red in the matrix. The bottom line from the matrix is that communities have a variety of options under the current law and plenty of opportunities to expand those options and to push for reform. At this point, I wanted to take a break, and before we turn to some of the specific actions in Massachusetts, see if there are any clarifying questions about the structure of the action guide or the approach that Acadia Center has taken.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. So we do have a question here, and if others have questions, please feel free to type them into the Q&A box now, and we'll either get to them in this break or at the end of Jeremy's presentation. So this first question here is, how does the Community Energy Vision Action Guide differ from the Massachusetts Green Community Standard?
So that's a great question, and I think the answer is that there's a fair amount of overlap in the individual actions under the Green Communities program run by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. However, it's not an identical amount of overlap, and what we try to do is look at a broad spectrum of potential actions that a community could do, and to not be restricted to any particular state's set of criteria. So I would say that there's a fair amount of overlap, but it is not identical. And I don't know if Amy, if you have anything you wanted to add.
I just was going to add that the list of actions that we included in the action guide is both, you know, towns that are already certified as green communities could do more, could do some of these additional steps, and then towns that haven't done a lot and have not gotten certified as green communities. There's also actions for them to be taking.
Great, thank you both. We have another question here that asks, in what form will the guide be available? I can answer that. The guide is available right now on Acadia Center's website in the Knowledge Center. And there you can find, there are digital versions in a PDF reader that can also be downloaded. We did make a decision to have this mostly be a digital focused report that you know, hopefully people can print if they'd like or take with them digitally and be using. So we hope you will be able to find those resources. If you can't, please reach out to us and we'll point you in the right direction.
And there will be contact information at the end of the presentation.
Great. All right. Okay. Looks like we have one more question here, which is, how did Acadia Center choose the actions that would be included?
I'll start and then Amy can jump in because she helped participate in some of the research as well. But during the research part of this, we worked with a variety of people both inside of Acadia Center and outside the organization, and started with a broad list of potential actions, and dug in to see which ones were viable and led to a meaningful change. And our attempt was to try to be comprehensive around the types of things that communities could do to advance clean energy at the local level. You know, certainly we don't think that we've gotten everything, and there'll be things that emerge over time that will need to get updated. But we try to be as comprehensive as we could, and then refined it through an internal and external peer review process to try to capture as broad a set of actions as we could.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is in terms of what Jeremy said earlier about no state has greens across the board and no state has reds across the board. We looked at all of the states and what communities are doing among all of the states, and there were some really cool things, really great ideas that had happened in some states. So we try to expand that to the rest of New England.
Great. Well, thank you both. That covers the questions we have right now. I would encourage everyone on the call to keep adding questions to the Q&A because we will have more time at the end. With that, we'll get back to Jeremy.
Great. So now I want to turn to the Massachusetts specific elements of the action guide. And so each state has a deep dive that identifies each of the 37 actions. And what I want to do is run through one green example, one yellow example, and one red example to give folks a flavor for how to use the guide and how each might lead to a different set of activities for advocates at the community level. So starting with an example, a green example, looking at the local generation, delivery, and purchasing of energy section of the guide. We're going to turn to the purchase of utility-owned streetlights. This is one possible action, and the regional matrix shows that it's possible and permitted here in Massachusetts. It's also permitted in Maine, New York, and Rhode Island, but it's somewhat limited in Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Vermont. So this will first tell you sort of where this action is permitted, limited, or prohibited, and in Massachusetts it's permitted. But what does it mean? So the guide will take a little bit of a deeper dive to explain that, you know, some municipalities may be interested in purchasing their streetlight systems from the utility owners as a way to upgrade the efficiency of those lights, to install LEDs or to change the lighting regime so that the lights are run more efficiently during the course of the night and dusk and dawn. Here in Massachusetts, utilities are required to sell those streetlights to interested municipalities, and at least 43 municipalities have done so and converted to LEDs over the last 2 decades. A lot of this has been done through our friends and colleagues at the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC, and so as a result, we've linked to their program as a way to show other communities that have not yet done that how it is possible. Here is an example of a clear path for communities to pursue one of the actions in the guide and make a meaningful difference in terms of efficiency of their own municipal energy use. So if we turn to a yellow action, we're going to move to the buildings category. And one of the actions we looked at is a community level building labeling mandate. Acadia Center asked whether municipalities can require building energy performance rating systems for residential or non-residential buildings. The matrix shows that this is an action where it's across the region. It's pretty muddy. It's yellow in most places, and in Massachusetts, it's no exception. For residential buildings, there may be some level of authority for a municipality to institute a labeling system, such as the DOE Home Energy Score, but there's no statewide mandate to do it, and there are some voluntary efforts. So at this point, there's a possibility of local action, but we couldn't find a precedent and for a mandated action, and it may require some guidance or explicit ability at the state level. And finally, turning to a red action where there's a full stop, we're going to go back to buildings and look at requiring new construction to be electric vehicle ready. This would mean that in some capacity, municipalities would be able to go above the state level building energy code to require that new construction have a set of wiring requirements to allow it residents who want to install electric vehicle charging infrastructure to make it easier for folks to do that. Although our neighbors in New York and Vermont have this option, Massachusetts Energy currently does not require it, nor does our stretch code. And it's worth noting that this was a heated topic of debate during the most recent update to the energy code. And the idea of EV-ready wiring was much discussed. It did not make it into the final 9th edition of the code, but that there is an effort afoot to make an amendment to the code to include this either later in 2018 or in January 19. So this is an explicit opportunity for state level advocacy to get communities engaged to not necessarily require communities to do it, but to open the door for those communities that want to do it, to give them the option by aligning state rules with a community's aspirations. So I'm going to stop there and just say a couple words about the guide and how it's intended to work. So for each of these 37 actions, it's a way to whet the community advocates or community leaders' appetite for pursuing the particular action, whether it's moving at the community level or moving at the state level and working with the groups like Acadia Center and other advocates to make sure that the state rules and state laws are enabling communities to pursue the clean energy actions that they want. Was create a guide that has accurate and actionable information and combine that with an inspiration for advocacy so that we can continue to clean energy across the region, both at the state and community level. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Amy and really look forward to having a little bit of a discussion around how we can leverage this tool with folks on the phone and folks across the Commonwealth to lead to some meaningful change.
Thank you, Jeremy, for that. Acadia Center really hopes that the action guide will be useful to all of you. The action guide can demonstrate how crucial it is to align community action with state-level reforms, by regional context for community energy actions and the state-specific information for moving forward, the action guide will raise awareness of which actions can be taken now and hopefully build support for updating the rules and processes that govern the energy system. The action guide may also spark a little friendly competition between states, as community energy advocates realize that their neighbors may have a different slate of available options. Take advantage of the ones that you can. Acadia Center plans for the action guide include widespread distribution to community and state level stakeholders, state-specific webinars like this one, we've done one for every state, to introduce users to the resource, and outreach to spark coalition work on the state level reforms that will benefit communities. We really look forward to collaborating on this, and this slide has my contact information. As I said, I'm a senior attorney here in the Massachusetts office. And if we have questions, let's get to them. I'll hand off to Krisha to handle the logistics.
Great. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Jeremy. So if folks do have questions, I would encourage you to put them into the Q&A box. You can also put them into the chat if you found that more easily. In the meantime, we have one question here that came in earlier, which asks, how does Acadia Center see the action guide being used? Jeremy, maybe you want to get started?
So I'll hop in. You know, I think Amy articulated a couple of the ways that we're envisioning this being used, but really we want to make sure that we don't overly prescribe how the guide should be used. We want it to be a tool for folks both at the state and community level to seek the change that they want at the clean energy level. We will hopefully the action guide will lead to individuals and groups teaming up with the Acadia Center and others in the future to change those state rules that are standing in the way of communities taking the actions they want to take. There may be constructive uses for the guide that we haven't thought of yet, and that's where a number of you come in, and where a number of folks who are working at the community level much more closely than we are would come in. We're eager to hear from you guys both on this webinar and afterwards around ways in which you think it can be used. Are there other groups we should be talking to? Are there other tools that are out there that we should be using in conjunction with the action guide? What are the ways in which we can continue to leverage this product and leverage the great work that's being done across the state to increase the amount of activity that's happening at the local level? That's all I'll say on that.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. Another question, how does Massachusetts stack up to other states?
I'll hop in and let Amy add to it, but I think I think the regional matrix does give you a snapshot of how Massachusetts stacks up vis-a-vis some of the other states. I think we're doing very well with a lot of the sort of things like the Green Communities program, and there are a lot of very engaged municipalities across the state. That said, you'll see that it's not all green, and that even where it is green, it doesn't guarantee that the communities are taking advantage of the options that are afforded them. And so I think there's plenty of work to continue to align the state rules with community options. And then the second piece is to really encourage communities to continue to pursue these actions to their fullest.
All right, great. Well, that's all the questions we have at the moment. If you have any final questions, please put them in now. In the meantime, I will say that the action guide is available on our website. There's a link from the slider on our home page, and you can also find it in the Knowledge Center. And we very much hope that you will share the action guide with your colleagues and get in touch with us if you see opportunities to collaborate on getting any of these actions forwarded in Massachusetts. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be available on YouTube in the next few days. And I don't see any additional questions. So I'd just like to thank you all very much and thank Amy and Jeremy for joining us. And I hope you have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.